This is UMBC Careers Unleashed, where we unleash stories, insights, and expertise to support you on your career journey. Let's dive in.
What's up, Retrievers? We're here for another episode of your favorite podcast, UMBC Careers Unleashed. And today I have a treat for you all, okay? I have someone that is going to be a mystery for a moment, but we're going to introduce them, and then we're going to get into the deep matters of career transitions and being mentally healthy in that experience. All right. So I want to introduce to some and present to others a wife, a mother, a daughter, a sister, someone who is a PhD holder in communications, a former professor, a communications professional, a higher education professional, a professional career coach, entrepreneur, perfectionist in recovery, proud Filipino, ballroom dancer, singer, performing arts aficionado, content creator, speaker, and all-around extrovert. My teammate, my colleague, my friend. Friends of the podcast, Rowena Winkler. How did I do?
Oh my gosh. I'm wondering, was that even me? I don't know who that is. I feel like that was such a wonderful introduction. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Yes. And listen, I just want you to know this is the first time I've ever introduced anyone. I always allow others to introduce themselves. But I just feel like, we're just such akin to one another. I was like, you know what? I got this. I got this.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I asked you, how do you want me to introduce myself? And you said, oh, don't worry. I'm introducing you. I'm like, oh, okay. So
yes. I hope other folks don't get jealous because, see, I don't know the other folks that we interview that well.
That's right. They can be jealous.
So as we transition a little bit, typically we do what's called a career controversy. And I don't know if I did it justice in our intro, but today I want to center in on mental health, right? And I know that recently, as a part of our work, you have kind of been researching and exploring what it means to be mentally healthy in your career journey, like in your pursuit for a job, but across the span, right? And you've been able to kind of share that out across campus. And I want to take that to the world, right?
Yeah.
In this podcast. So before we get really deep in, I have a career controversy, a question for you, my friend.
I'm ready.
Is the career space and the career journey traumatizing?
Ooh. Gosh, I'm such a fan of the pod, and I've listened to all the episodes, and I was waiting to see what my career controversy was going to be quite honest. As a whole, it's not a traumatizing process.
Okay.
But there can be traumatizing moments along the journey, such as with life, right?
Right.
We have moments that are challenging, traumatizing, horrible even, right? Mm-hmm. And it is through those more challenging, traumatizing moments that we come out the other side and know ourselves better, who we are, what we want to be, who we want to be around in terms of our support, because oftentimes in those moments, we see people for who they really are in terms of our friends, family, employers, that sort of thing. So I think that, we could experience traumatizing moments that are going to wreck us, break us down. I know I have experienced those moments in my own career, but now looking back on those moments, I know that those were moments of clarity to help me be like, ooh, this is not the type of organization I want to work for.
Right.
This is not the type of career I want to do. This is not the type of people I want to surround myself with in my workday. And it led me to a more aligned and authentic, for me, career path.
So in summation, you're saying that as a whole, it's not, but there can be experiences that are.
Sure.
And that's in your professional opinion, my friend?
That is my stamp.
I'm going to be controversial and say
Go
it is.
ahead.
I'm going to say it is traumatizing.
Yeah.
Stubbing your toe is traumatizing.
Sure.
Right? This morning I was on my way into the office and it was raining. And I don't know, this person like swerved in front of me and then swerved to the next lane. And I'm thinking, what kind of tires do you have? Like, and I was afraid that they were going to lose control. And that experience was traumatizing, right? So I think that the word traumatizing has a weightiness to it.
Sure.
But I think at its essence, it's something that is jarring.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that it is, right? Every time that you want to make a leap from one place to the next, coming from college, looking for that first job, and you're am I going to get an interview? And then you get your little email back from them saying you've been put into the pool, or you get the email that says you don't. That's jarring.
Yeah.
Right? Even if it's a positive thing. Now you're like, oh, I'm into the candidate pool. Then you're waiting for the email announcement. Then you get the email where they're saying, oh, we want to interview you. Can you select it at interview time? Now you're like, oh my goodness, what day do I pick? Should I pick the 9 a.m. one? Will I get there on time? Should I pick the 12 o'clock one? Does that say that I'm late? Do I need to pick the 9 o'clock one and make sure that I get up at 4 a.m.? Like all of those things.
Yeah.
Or then you get into a career path, right? And it's like, wow, what does promotion look like? Am I getting paid enough money? Right? And I think that it is necessary. I think that there are joys. I think that there are highs and lows. But I'm going to say that the journey as a whole, and then I think this may be future focused for some of our students and maybe not. But let's talk about it, Rowena, because we both have kids. Okay?
Yeah.
And then trying to balance your career alongside your second career.
Yeah.
Right? And there is no retirement from motherhood. And then you got people calling you, people who need you. So I'm going to be controversial.
Go ahead.
And I'm going to say that the career journey is traumatizing.
I think the moments, those aspects of our career, or for folks that come up in terms of college, jobs, and whatnot, can be very anxiety inducing for sure, especially in this particular job market. There's a lot happening. I would say, and this is something that I have spoken to, because you mentioned I've done some presentations and I've worked with Stephanie Will at Retrievers Integrated Health in terms of this. It's creating a sense of groundedness and resiliency.
Yes.
That can help us get through those times, so that doesn't feel like, up here, the whole thing is traumatizing.
Yeah.
So having those tools at our disposal, and again, the support networks that we need to stay grounded, I think can help it be less, high, low, and a little more balanced. Maybe. I'm still working on this personally, but I'm hopeful that,
You know what? This is why you have a PhD. Because I changed my mind, maybe. I don't know. I have to consider. We'll think about it. Maybe we can revisit it if I remember at the end of the episode. But I do think that if you're well grounded, right, there are, and I don't know if it's traumatizing in a way that you can't recover.
Yeah.
Maybe that is what you have illuminated for me. And I think that might be comforting to some.
Yeah.
That there are, like you said, those moments. But that if you are grounded well, if you have the right support system, that it's not debilitatingly traumatizing. Okay. Well, listen, I'm telling you, that's why you have the PhD. I don't know if I'll ever have that in my life, but I'm glad. I could realize the question. So now that we have given the folks the beautiful introduction of you, I would love for you to tell our podcast viewers and family and friends like a little bit more about your role here at UMBC, and then like how long you've been here, and do you have specific student populations that you support?
Sure. So my role is Assistant Director for Graduate Student Career Development. And we talked about kids. I'm essentially an infant / toddler in my role. We say it that way, right? I started just a little over a year ago. So it's been, it's been about a year and a couple of months. So I'm fairly new. This role is brand new, right?
Yeah.
So there has never been anyone at the UMBC Career Center that is focused on supporting graduate students specifically. And due to the nature of the graduate student population at UMBC, that includes international students as well. So in my role, I create programs with graduate students that would help them with career readiness topics. I also conduct one-on-one appointments with students, as you know, as we both do that in our roles. And I also, just develop partnerships with units on campus that support graduate students. So I've built relationships with folks at the graduate school, for example, the Office of Graduate and Student Life. I have a really great relationship with the Office of Professional Programs. So all of these units that serve graduate students, I'm there as well to not be like, hey, I'm here as a representative of the Career Center to help support graduate students as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you told us a little bit about what you're doing now, but I want to take you back. Back. Yes. That's another thing that I did say that in your intro that you're a singer. We may bust into show tunes, y'all.
Yeah.
I don't know. It could get 90s R&B. We could go 90s pop. I mean, that's like our era. It could go. It could go any way.
Yeah.
I want us to go back a little bit though.
Sure.
And I want us to be open, right? We want to get vulnerable. We want to share with our audience your story, right? Your authentic story. So in going back, I want you to tell us a little bit about like your college years. What was undergrad Rowena like? What were your goals? What were your dreams? Take us back there.
So I know for you and my colleagues that may watch/listen to this, college Rowena was more of an overachiever than current Rowena.
Okay.
Which blows my mind even now as an adult. So I was doing all the things. I was a straight A student, very academically focused, always studying, always doing what I needed to do to get my work done. I was very involved also, especially with the theater community at my undergrad. So I was performing in shows. I joined a sorority as an undergrad as well, but we were like the smart girl sorority.
You know what? I didn't know that about you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was in Tri Sigma as an undergrad, and we had the highest GPA. So that tracks in terms of the sorority that I would join. And I was very academically focused as in my major. So very, very driven. Doing a lot. Very
And so
busy.
doing all of that, right?
Yeah.
Like, were there challenges that resulted? I mean, of course, being a high achiever, being involved on campus, those are all wonderful things, right? Like when I look back at my undergrad experience, and I'm first gen, like I came to college and I was like, I made it. And then I'm like, it was like a fashion show every day. How cute can I be coming on campus? And I mean, of course, I was going to my classes and I was doing all of those things, but I didn't necessarily have an anchor, where it was like, this is the mark that you have to hit. I was used to being, kind of like, and in full transparency, I grew up in like a blue collar, predominantly white area. And so I was used to being like the token Black kid.
Right.
And I went to a HBCU.
Wow.
And so being smart and Black was not, it was not like special.
Right.
So I didn't have that like, I must do this, I must do that. I was really trying to figure and find my way, right?
Yeah.
And that was kind of a challenge for me. But I would imagine somebody who you seem like you came out smoking, like, boom, you came out of there like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do theater, I'm going to do da-da-da-da-da. Were there challenges for you as a result of that, your reality?
Sure. So one challenge was that I actually switched majors a couple of times before I landed in communication studies, which is where I've stayed since in my area. So I started off as an elementary education math major. I wanted to be a math teacher at first, and then realized that as a double major at my university, I had to take all these upper level math classes. And I was like, oh, no, thank you, because I wanted to teach elementary math. So then I switched to elementary education English, thinking, I enjoy reading, I enjoy writing. Maybe that's the path, but it still didn't feel right. So I switched to communication. And I remember being concerned that I was switching so much. I remember my mom being concerned that I was switching so much. I was like, make up your mind. What are you doing? So once I landed in communication studies, that was it. I was pretty set in terms of what I wanted to do in terms of a career. The other piece that was a challenge is my freshman year. It was toward the end of the semester, my first semester, freshman year.
Mm-hmm.
And we were getting towards finals week, and I was not taking care of myself. I was not sleeping. I wasn't really eating that well. I was very stressed and overwhelmed. It was a traumatic, situation where I was just trying to get things done.
Yeah.
And I had a mental health emergency, essentially.
Wow.
And had to be taken to the emergency room. And I had to take all incompletes that first semester because I didn't get to finish finals. And I couldn't go back to school spring semester because my psychiatrist didn't feel I was ready to go back because there's still a lot that I needed to work on and get better. And so that was a very challenging first year, and one of the pivotal moments in my life, in my, career trajectory, where I had to take a beat and remind myself, hey, you need to take care of yourself. You're not going to be able to do all these things you want to do if you're not, meeting the basic needs that you need to take care of in order to be well. So, yeah, that was a major challenge in my life. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And I know, right, like incompletes aren't necessary. They don't impact your GPA, but and I'm looking at you now, Miss, you're a professed recovering perfectionist.
Sure.
Right. So with that part of your personality, seeing those eyes on your transcript, like how, when you came back, was that like?
Yeah. I finished the incompletes.
So you finished them?
I did end up finishing them. It took a while. So I think I finished them in the spring, maybe later in the spring. And then I took summer classes to catch up. So I did still manage to graduate in 4 years.
Look at you.
And the silly thing is, and I talk to my husband about this sometimes, the silly thing is, looking back, I ended up graduating magna cum laude. So that was, I think I had a 3.86 or something. And I was upset that I didn't get summa because I got sick. So even after that experience, I was still upset with myself that I didn't get a perfect 3.94 GPA because I had a mental health emergency. So it just blows my mind again that, just thinking back on it, that even as an 18-year-old, I was still putting so much pressure on myself to be perfect or to achieve, perfection in that way.
Wow. And I want to be sensitive to the moment, right?
Yeah.
Because I feel like that our student population at UMBC, they are those high achievers. They are the ones who have their mind made up that when I get here, this is the thing. And if you can, want you to lean in, right? From your vantage point where you are right now. What would you say to Rowena, who at graduation had the 3.8 as opposed to the 3.904, right? 3.86, right? I don't want to miss any of your decimals. What would you say to that Rowena who was not giving herself grace? What would you say to her?
Baby.
Yeah.
You're going to end up going to one of the top public relations graduate programs in the country with that 3.86 or whatever. It's fine. It's fine. It doesn't really matter anyway. Employers are not going to be staring at your GPA. You're a well-rounded individual. You have a lot of activities. You have a lot of support. You have a lot of great qualities that would make you a rock star candidate. Calm down.
Yes. Calm down. Right. Like said, never calm down. Right. Like, okay, I'm calm. I'm calm. Right. Like saying calm down is like, from this vantage point, right. You can easily say that.
Yeah.
And I think for our viewership, like for our folks in the audience, put your own name there, right? And it may not be that you're in pursuit of a communications degree or upper or higher education in communications, but whatever the thing is, if you are wrestling, I think that what you offer to them from the vantage point of time and wisdom, you have time, meaning that you survived and lived beyond it and had success and success and success afterward. But then you also have wisdom, because there are bigger fish to fry than a 0.6 extra whatever decimals on your GPA, right? Like, so I don't want to trivialize that, because I really do understand like that what makes people be successful sometimes is that you know, that oomph that makes them concerned about that 0.06% on the decimal, right? But I also think that to bring balance to the conversation, just the way that you said, calm down. Calm down.
Well, when I talk to students, especially when it comes to interviewing for a position or a role, there are two things that employers are looking for, right? Competency. Can you do the job that we're asking you to do, which sure could look in the form of your GPA, but mostly it's your skills, right? What skills do you bring to the table? What experiences do you have that make you a good candidate for this? But the second piece is warmth. Are you a nice person? Are you a friendly human being? Do I want to work with you? Because oftentimes someone looks good on paper, but then you meet them and you're like, I don't know if I want to work with you. Right?
And that's real. You know, when we talk about NACE core competencies, right? None of the core job readiness skills that, you know, this pioneering research organization, when they're talking about job readiness, you never see GPA.
Right.
You never see obedience on there, right? Because really, to me, GPA speaks to obedience. It doesn't even necessarily, you have to be, I think, intelligent in order to be successful in your courses. But it also, for me, there are people who are intelligent but rebellious. And I'm not saying that obedience isn't a desirable attribute, because I do think it is. It allows you to excel in a lot of spaces. But it doesn't mean that just because you didn't get the 3.86 or the 3.92 or, you know, the 3.5 or whatever your number is, right, that you're not smart enough or good enough.
Well, depending on the course too, it might just be rote memorization. Are you good at memorizing things and regurgitating it out into an exam? It doesn't mean you have critical thinking skills or interpersonal skills, right?
Which are definitely on the NACE core competencies.
That's right.
Competencies. So let's shift a little bit.
Okay.
So we've come out of undergrad with shining colors now. Shining, I don't know if that's the word, shining colors, bright, high-flying stars. And you shifted into grad school. So tell us, like, where did you get your master's degree? I know you have a PhD. Did you go straight from undergrad to the PhD, or did you get a master's degree? Like, what did it look like with your grad school journey?
Sure. So I went straight from my bachelor's to my master's. Thinking I was just getting a master's. So I got my master's in communication at the University of Maryland, College Park. Go Terps.
We might have to cut that part out, y'all. I'm just kidding. I just kidding.
Whenever there's a student that comes to my office saying they're interested in College Park for grad school, I get very, very excited. And I point to my PhD on the wall like, hey, I went there too. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
It's still in the family. We won't.
Right.
We'll let
system.
you live. We'll let you breathe on that one.
So I got my master's in communication with an emphasis in public relations. And I thought, I'm going to get my master's, maybe do PR for a theater company, right? Because I mentioned you mentioned actually my theater experience and interest. So I was like, yeah, that's it. That's great. But then when I got to UMD, master students get to teach undergraduate courses. We take classes with PhD students and learn research methods and things like that. And I realized when I was there, I really like teaching. I really like research. I think I like this academic situation. So, you know, by the end of my 2 years doing my master's program, I decided I think I will continue on for a PhD. I ended up staying at University of Maryland College Park, but I also applied to other PhD programs. But I decided to stay. It would take me a shorter period of time to do the PhD there. And, I loved my time in graduate school.
Really?
Oh, yes. I loved the classes. The friends that I made in my cohort.
So what made then the fundamental difference between, and I'm not saying that you didn't love your undergrad experience, but the way that you spoke about it, was there something that the undergraduate academic experience provided, and then something different that like grad school did for you, where you were like, oh, I'm alive now, like this is really learning or whatever?
Yeah, the cool thing about grad school is that the majority of your coursework is in the area that you picked, right?
Yeah.
So I'm taking classes in the area that I love and am interested in and want to know more about. So there was a passion behind it there, and it was so interesting. And yeah, I think as an undergrad, I was still figuring things out, and especially with my mental health episode, I think, I was still dealing with that a little bit. So I think getting to grad school, then I was like excited and ready to hit the ground running. I will also mention on a personal note that College Park is where I met my husband. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I'm learning that like right now, live. And yes, I was today and this amount of seconds year old when I learned that. Wow. You know what? My journey, and then you went immediately from did you take any breaks between?
No, girl. I got my bachelor's, master's, and PhD in less than 10 years.
Come on. I don't want to mess up the microphone, but I want to just let me do like this. Round of applause. My journey was so much different. I came through, and you talk about magna summa cum laude. I graduated, thank you, laude. Okay. I also changed my major. And I pursued sociology because I thought, okay, I wanted to end up in social work. But then when I learned that you had to have a master's degree in order to be a licensed social worker, I was like, because at the end of my undergraduate experience, I was done. And I came out into the workforce into like a temp job. And I allowed initially the interest of like my first temp. I worked at a leasing office, and I was just like a receptionist answering phone calls, and my the supervisor in that space just liked me. She was also a HBCU graduate, and she could see that I was sharp, and she wanted kind of my energy in there, and she offered me a job. And I was like interviewing for other stuff, and I told her, well, I got another job offer. And she looked at my job offer. I was so young. I'm like giving her my job offer, like telling them how much they were offering me. And she was like, oh, baby, you're going to make way more money than that. If it was like a lower base salary, but because there were commissions and that it would be more. And she was right. I definitely did. And I allowed in that moment someone who I saw as a mentor to kind of like shape the beginning of my post-college career path. Yeah. And then after being in that position for about 2 years, that was like when the economy started tanking. It was around 2010, and I got laid off. And in that layoff, I could not, I wanted to shift gears. I wanted to do something that was more in alignment with my, where I went to school for. Yeah. But because the economy, we were going through, a huge transition, a time where folks were not hiring, places where it was like actually hiring freezes happening. And I started to question, am I really smart? Am I a good employee? Is there something wrong with me? All of these things. And I was unemployed for over a year. Wow. And the thing is that there were so many people at that time that were having that experience that President Obama, Barack Obama was the president at the time. He actually extended the time frame that you could be on unemployment. So I went through and exhausted the whole first thing, and then took advantage of the extension before I could even find a job. And then I ended up going into a temp job. And then I started to go back to school, but because I couldn't get a job and continue to pay, I then had to stop taking classes. Wow. And it was just like a start and stop.
Yeah.
It was, and that was, I think, really It was a challenge to my self-worth.
Yeah.
Really was. And it wasn't until, I want to say from 2000, not I want to say, it actually was. It was from 2010 until 2018 when I actually secured another full-time, fully benefited position. I had another job in there that was like 3 years, but it was a contract role.
Gotcha.
And that contract actually ended. They didn't renew it. And so I was back, questioning myself again. And it was for 8 years that I did not have a full-time position.
Wow.
And it was just, now looking back at it, it was the thing that, I don't want to say fueled me, but maybe fueled me, but also gives me so much grace when I'm counseling and supporting folks in their career journey, because I've been through so much there.
Yes.
And I actually, while I was in that contract position, started my master's degree, but I got pregnant in the middle and I had to go on hiatus. And so I then had to circle back as a single mother to complete my master's degree.
Wow.
Right. And so it was muscle building.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I think at the time, like, well, and I know this is a heavy word, but I think that those experiences were traumatizing.
Sure.
But overcoming those things, from looking back, and I don't want to be, I can go on and on and on, girl. But I just want to highlight that your journey, while it had its challenges, mine was different. But it had its challenges too.
Right.
So we're talking about now, we talked about master's degrees. And I know that you said you stayed at UMD, University of Maryland College Park, the flagship school of the University of Maryland school system. But you got a terminal degree. Like, usually when you get a PhD, you're either headed into research or to become a professor. And I know a little bit about your story, but like, what was the thing there? Like, what was PhD pursuing Rowena like?
Oh, man. So I think it's interesting because I don't know if I quite had learned my lesson from undergrad.
Okay.
I think I was doing a lot of the same behaviors in terms of working my butt off, maybe not taking care of myself as well as I could have. But I did have a great support system, as I mentioned. My colleagues, my grad school friends were great. And then I will shout out, because I mentioned I met my husband. I met him through an organization called Ballroom at Maryland.
Oh.
So it's a ballroom dancing club at the university. I tell people I would not have finished my dissertation. I would not have gotten my PhD without this group. So that's where...
That was your outlet.
That was the outlet. So I would write all day my dissertation and then go and dance in the evenings. And it really helped me a lot.
Healthy,
so finding something
like a healthy balance,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And it's physical.
Yes.
So you're getting all of that,
Yes.
energy out. And baby, I know. I'm serious, because that's like exercise. You were probably looking, your calf muscles were doing it, weren't they? Tell us.
Yeah, I was pretty fit back then. I mean, I was dancing like almost every day. And it was mostly because I just loved seeing my friends. So we all would dance and practice, and then we'd go out to eat. And so it really did bring more balance and, again, that groundedness into my life. I think the first couple of years were okay, but I think joining that club really helped bring things, to
we could just end the episode right there. If you want to get a PhD, join a ballroom dancing club.
Yeah.
You'll be fit, and, physically and mentally. Now, so you have a terminal degree. What did you go on to do with that?
Yes. So after I got my PhD in 2013, I moved on to a tenure track assistant professor position.
Okay.
So I went straight into academia as a professor at Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond. So I moved down to Virginia.
The VCU.
To VCU. And go Rams. And I was there for 3 years.
Okay. And so you were there for 3 years. What was that like? Like, I'm out of school and now I'm back in school. like teaching people? I mean, was that like
Yeah.
life-giving? Did you feel like you were, actualizing your goals that you set? Like, what was that like for you?
Yeah, so it's interesting because, well, first of all, it was definitely different, right? I lived in my own space for the first time because as a grad student, you're poor. So I had roommates the whole time I was a graduate student. So I got my own cute little house, walking distance from the university. So I rented.
Yeah.
But I got my own space, and I loved teaching the students. The students there are so bright and talented, and I still keep in touch with a lot of those same students that I taught
Wow.
back then. And it's really neat to see them, how they've grown in their careers, and now they have families. It's just so interesting. So the students were fantastic, but I was realizing, is this, because you're right, like at first I was like, this is exactly what I wanted. This is, I'm finally moving toward my
Just
self-actualization.
coming and shuffling across campus with your
I was
briefcase.
like, let's go. But a couple of things happened. Number
Okay.
one, my first semester, my father passed away from cancer.
Wow.
So he was actually sick while I was writing my dissertation. I dedicated my dissertation to my father. He passed away in October that first year. And that was such a pivotal moment for me. Another one, right? It was like another one in this timeline.
Yeah.
Where I thought really hard about my legacy.
Yeah.
What I wanted to do. What am I doing here? What is the purpose of all this? Seeing my father go through this. And I was realizing that my mental health was taking a toll. As a junior faculty member, I felt like that there was a lot of carrot dangling, like, you want tenure, like, do all these things. And it just didn't feel good to me to have to do all that. And additionally, there was a leadership change as well. So that changed the mood, the culture. Things shifted that I didn't expect. And at this time, this was when all of the marches were happening with like George Floyd, like all that was around this time. So my students were marching in the streets and doing all this activism work. And I felt the university wasn't moving fast enough. And that, it's so interesting just now thinking of where we are now. And a lot of the, practices to teach our students this and to do, like, they just felt like Band-Aids on the situation and not really like the deep conversations and dialogue that we needed to have. And the students were looking to me as a faculty person of color to help them with this. And it was too much. It just, as much as I wanted to stay, it was like, again, the mental health, it was too much.
And that was what? That was COVID, huh?
When was
George Floyd?
So
when was that?
it was 20, so I started there, I was there from 2013 to 2016.
So that might have been Mike Brown.
Was it Mike Brown?
That might have been Mike
was
Brown.
not
Hands
Floyd?
up.
Okay.
Yeah, that might have been. But still,
It was
it was like around the
era.
birth of the like Black Lives Matter movement. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can remember that time.
Yeah.
I can remember that time. I think I think a little bit differently for me. Once there was a large gap between undergrad and then the completion of my graduate school experience, and I was pushing so hard for it because I was a mom, and I was like, I couldn't break through a salary cap. And I needed that extra degree, so I thought, in order to be able to access a higher salary. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to get this, next job. I'm going to get this degree. I'm going to get the next job, and, all of my things are going to come true. And similarly, it wasn't necessarily that 2016, but it was during COVID.
Yeah.
Where I did my own, reflection and evaluation on like, what is all this even, for, if without really seeing into me that I can be prejudged by how, maybe you're thoughts about me without even knowing me.
Right.
So I definitely, from maybe not necessarily a student perspective, I wasn't like in that space, but I think that was something that I had to come to grips with too. Might have been a different year, but it was around that COVID time frame where I was like really considering like I could have every accolade, but without even, and that's not everybody's story, but I think that's a story worth telling, you know, that at these moments where not only is it your own personal thing.
Yes.
But then you've got outside of you, your family. You had an experience with your father, the transition of your dad, and then the country, right? Like that compounds.
Yes.
Because you're not an island. It's like, okay, I'm here. I'm thinking that I'm living my dream, but there's all these things that they want me to do. And then I had this, and then this is going on. And it's like, is it even the thing,
right?
You know? And so, I mean, I know, the inner workings of your story a little bit, because ultimately you're here. So we know you didn't stay a professor forever. Like, what did that transition out of like academia, what did that bring for you?
Oh my gosh. It probably to this day was one of the most difficult decisions of my life.
Wow. I know, because like you spend your whole life, or at least a significant chunk of your adulthood.
Yes. I mean, my whole
building
time spent in graduate school was toward this moment of I'm going to be a professor. I'm going to be a professor forever. I'm going to get tenure. Yeah. And that's it. I'm set. Yes. And so when these feelings were coming through and I was reconsidering my decision and thinking of leaving, there was a lot of turmoil over that decision. Like, and it was back to what you were saying. It was like, okay, but if I leave, am I good enough to do anything else? Yeah. This is what I've known for so long. Yeah. Do I even know how to, sell myself in terms of
like outside of this?
Outside of this, because the academic, especially the hiring process and the way things are done in that space, it's so different than industry. So I had no idea. And so you mentioned your mentor. I had a wonderful mentor as well, one of my professors from undergrad.
Okay.
Who talked to me. She helped me basically translate my CV, my academic accomplishments, into things that mattered for employers, which is essentially the work I do now here at UMBC. Right. So it's like paying it forward for sure.
Right.
And I was and I still am so grateful to her for that, because it really helped me see, wait, I do have things I can offer to an organization. I just need to reframe it and say it in this different way because that's what they need, right? And so that exercise was so crucial in terms of helping me be okay, because I knew at the end of the day, I can't stay here. Like, I can't keep doing this. I have to go.
Yeah. That wasn't for you. And so then, like, what was the next place? Did you take a break? Or like, okay, academia. And did you get like backpack around Europe? Like what?
I wish.
Right.
No. So I did move back to Maryland because that's where Derek still was. He was going to move to Virginia, but when I made the decision to leave, he stayed put. Okay. I came back to Maryland. And
Derek, that's your husband.
Oh, that's my husband. I'm so sorry. I just realized I didn't even
because you're talking to me.
I know.
Exactly.
Yes, Derek is my husband. And I actually, for 1 year, got to work back at my alma mater at College Park in my department. They offered me an administrative role where I ran the oral communication program, where I led all of the professors and instructors that teach the core general education elective, the communication 107 course. So I ran that program, and because I was thinking, well, maybe it's administration that I'm interested in, right? Maybe I don't want to be a faculty member, but maybe this might be an interesting solution.
Okay.
That I realized that was not.
Hey, and you know what? That's valuable information.
Yeah.
So you're at UMD, your alma mater. You're trying to figure out, okay, not professor, but maybe administration. And what happens next?
So that was around the time when my mentor helped me.
Okay.
And I got my first industry position.
Oh.
The role was listed in Indeed as communication writer.
Okay.
So I said, oh, I have degrees in communication. That might be relevant. it was a copywriter role, which was fine.
Okay.
I ended up
What's
working.
a copywriter?
So I
don't.
wrote, yeah. So, it was interesting. It was a shift for me for sure, because I was used to academic style writing, writing publications, journal articles, that sort of thing, research papers. As a copywriter, I wrote marketing copy. So I wrote blog posts. I wrote email copy. I wrote case studies, web copy. So I wrote marketing copy for we were an in-house communications team for this company, so we wrote all the language for them for that. It was an interesting transition. Yeah,
that was probably an opportunity for you to go from theoretical, right, like from your academic journey around communications to like, oh, this is like the work about all the stuff that I was reading about. Did it feel like that any way, or was it like, oh, those books had me confused?
Yeah, no, it was an interesting. So I definitely felt imposter syndrome at first.
Okay,
being like, I don't know how to operate in this kind of office environment, or how
as creative and as brilliant and as accomplished, and you still felt that way?
Yes, because again, I was so used to a certain environment for so long, and I knew how to operate in that environment, and I knew this is the recovering perfectionist, probably perfectionist at that point, right? Like I was very familiar with what I was supposed to do, that in this newer space, I didn't know what to do, and that uncertainty scared me. Yeah. But once I hit the ground running, it was great. I learned a lot. And I tell this to students all the time, because I had my master's and PhD, I was able to move into a management role fairly quickly. So then I had my cute little writing team that I, supervised, and we had so much fun. I really enjoyed managing them. We had a great time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I know. So, okay. And I know that there's so many things that Rowena, come on now. I call you when I'm on my way home from work, like, girl, so we could like talk forever. But I want to go back a little bit. You were saying in there how you were like, this was like uncertainty, and you were like, you're used to having things this way. And we say this all the time, like there's no rubric for life, right? Like you've been in the academic space, right? I feel like our undergrad students, graduate students also, like that they, in transitioning from being a student to then even like the internship experience, that they're like, okay, so what do I have to do to get, the highly successful rating? And it's like it's like almost like removing the track from underneath their feet. And I think that is one of the things that, when I first met you in your interview, because I had the opportunity to be there, that I was like, this is what we need. Like someone who can help support and navigate, especially our students who've been in academia for as long as, to pursue their PhD. Like, how do you navigate that?
Right.
And I know a little bit about you. I'm going to sneak and tell the folks that at another point in your life, you were like a professional coach and entrepreneur in the entrepreneur space. And like, that was your cornerstone. That was like your thing. And it still is, right? It still is in this space.
Sure.
So like, do you feel like that journey the same way that I was talking about earlier, like that there's this providential like wisdom that you can, and like comfort and grace that you can give because of your own journey?
To students?
Yeah.
I was going to myself.
Well, to students, and let's talk about you too. Like, is there, and maybe that's the real question, does the person who is so accomplished, right, who has the skill set, maybe doesn't have the language around it, doesn't have the document, the resume, and that could be you or a student, does that person, are they worthy? Are they deserving of grace? Will they be successful?
Sure. I mean, I think one of the joys of doing this work and working with students the way that we do is I'm able to hold up that mirror, right? And say, hey, look at you. You have done so much. You are working so hard. There is an employer that will want to hire you. I know it's so hard right now. let's talk through how we can frame up your experiences and your skills in a way that we can get these folks to see that too. You know what I mean? And yeah, there have been moments where I can see the discouragement. I can see students feeling like, oh, it's such a grind. But I'm a firm believer that what's meant to be is gonna come on in, and my current role included in that.
Sometimes what we think we're doing while we are in pursuit of like any goal attainment, but in this case, academic attainment. And then when we start to kick into that post-collegiate experience, and I don't want to speak loosely and to say that it's selfish, but it's like individualistically it's like the individual centered. And then what I have listened to throughout your journey, right? Ups and downs, weaving in and out. What I'm hearing is that you went from what can I do to how can I serve? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It was like, I've got to achieve this. I'm going to get this GPA and then I'm going to get accepted into this. And then when I do this and I'm going to do that and then I'm going to be a professor. And not to say that being a professor is not service oriented, but your disposition and your energy around how your engagement with that role. And then it was like, wait a minute, like life is bigger than what I can do. And it's like, how can I be of service? And I am just so in awe and proud and like for so many reasons that I get to work with you. And there's this, it's an old Negro, I don't know if it's a spiritual, but I know it's an idiom. It's something that people say, and they say, it wouldn't take nothing for my journey now. And this might be sagey. And do you know what sagey means?
Yeah,
right? It's like the sage advice corner.
Let's get sagey.
Right. This might be a little sagey. And I think we were heavy a little bit in this episode or, in this conversation. But it's like that when you are navigating, when my grandmother says, what doesn't come out in the wash will come out in the rinse. Like eventually, if you are for our students who are in maybe one of those traumatic experiences, whether it be going from undergrad and trying to figure out what grad school they want to go to, or if they want to go into the job market, or if they are a federal government employee or were in pursuit of federal government employment, right? And now in our political climate, that opportunity may seem like it has dissipated, like that when you're in those moments. I really think that your story, right, navigating from that bright-eyed freshman who was so excited to achieve through to, and I think that you still are that bright-eyed person, who is an achiever for sure, but like that through all the ups and downs, right? Where you said to yourself, like, calm down. You're going to be okay. Like, and if you're in that traumatic moment, I don't think that's like the overarching theme of this whole thing. So, okay, I don't want to steal the show because, I talk a lot, but I do want to ask you something because you are a coach. You are a communicator, as you so eloquently remind me that your number 2 Clifton strength is communication, but mine is number 1, right?
I was going to say I also have achiever as a Clifton strength.
Because I know these things I just can see and perceive.
Yeah.
My question then is, what is the toolkit, right? And I know this might be a big thing, but if we could say, kind of in your wisdom now, having gone through your own journey, and then as a coach, like what needs to be in the toolkit as we journey through our career path that is and has those traumatic experiences? Like, what do we bring to ourselves so that we can be mentally fit for that journey?
So I would say, get your care team in order.
Okay.
I'm a firm believer of having a good therapist.
Okay.
Firm believer.
Yes.
I'm pro therapy over here. Okay.
Me too. Okay. We wouldn't be counselors if we weren't.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that could be your therapist. I know for me, I see an acupuncturist, right? So whatever means that is, or a confidant or your best friend or whoever, get your care team together. If you need a doctor on that team, right? So whoever that is, get your care team in order. And depending on what's going on, and that could be a coach too.
Right.
So whoever that is for you and your needs, get the care team together.
Okay.
And as evidenced by my experiences joining Ballroom at Maryland, find the community. You need your people.
Yeah.
Who see you for you. Why am I getting emotional?
This is your life's word. While you were talking and sharing your journey and all of the ups and downs, I could see little Rowena. I could see freshman Rowena. You are coaching her, I think, and you are sharing that strength with our viewing audience. But there are so many people who are that in their first year, so many people who are getting ready to graduate, and they're irritated with themselves because they don't have the 3.94. There's so many people who are like, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to medical school. I'm going to do, and then life offers them something,
Sure.
And this is what our episode is about. It's about how do we structure our lives in order and comport us, like bring things into our space so that we can go through that journey.
Well, because the thing is, like, oftentimes if we're in that space that you're mentioning, we tend to isolate ourselves.
Okay.
Because we're so in the grind, and we're so focused on the achievement and the prize.
Yeah.
That we push out the people that are there for you.
Yeah.
And that care about you and can get you through those traumatizing times,
Yeah. So I want to capture, because you were going somewhere, and it was, and I'm a church girl, so I love a little alliteration. So you said, get your care team.
Yep.
Get your community. And then, is there anybody else?
We need another C.
Right, we do, because you know it. You know,
get
we need
your
three.
Career counselor.
Boom. Get your coach.
Get your coach.
Get that person who is, and that a coach doesn't have to have the title coach.
Sure.
Right? Your care team, and you did mention that coaches could be in that space, but I
sure.
think that the care team is probably for that emotional aspect.
Emotional, mental, physical.
Yeah. And then your community, right? That's the human being.
Yes.
That's your connection.
Yes.
And then if we're going to say, when you say get your career person, get your coach.
Get your coach.
That's the person that draws you forward.
Professional, future moving. Come on.
Listen, and because I like to cry. What is the resource? And you worked with, so you, I think, can be the one. We like to offer resources at the end of each episode.
Sure.
Give a pitch for not only the Career Center, but let's give a pitch for Retrievers Integrated Health. Like, you worked with them in your, presentation and your work around this area, like being mentally healthy in that career journey. So give them a pitch, and then we'll put some information about them in the show notes.
Sure. So shout out to, again, my colleague, Stephanie Will, over at Retriever Integrated Health.
I love a good Stephanie.
Yeah. She's great. And they have a variety of different things over there. They have counseling, right? Free counseling for students as needed. They have 24/7 lines if you need support. They have group therapy sessions, and they have one for graduate students. They have one for all different types of areas. If you need help with functioning just in general, if you need help with anxiety, so they have a whole bunch of different tools at their disposal. They also have some online resources. So I think one's an app that they have, and I'll send you. We'll make sure we'll put it in the show notes. The names of those things, because it's not coming to me right now. But they do have like online resources as well. So like if you want to do things more like asynchronously or not in person, that is available to you as well.
Got you. Well, you know what? If our friends have stuck with us to the end of this podcast episode, and this was one of the more vulnerable, I think this is probably the most vulnerable podcast, right? But it was a very necessary subject, because I think the world is real, and so if you stuck with us to the end and you got your box of tissues and maybe your Snickers or whatever next to you, we just want to say, you know what? The Career Center is here. We love you, and thanks for hanging with us.
Thanks.
Bye.
Yay.